Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's CPH review session, which is Program and Resource Management, presented by Dr. Serena Dubois. So just as we have in the last sessions, I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any comments or questions, please put that in the Q&A section. But in the chat, you can interact with each other and also answer anything that the presenters might ask of you throughout the presentation. So a little bit about our presenter today. Sabrina Dubois is a postdoctoral research fellow at the Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins University, working on medical cannabis and other health outcomes. She holds a PhD from the Feinberg School of Medicine at Northwestern University and was certified in public health in 2016. With the NBPHE, Serena has been volunteering since 2016 in many different capacities. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Serena for today's presentation.
Thanks, Ashley. Hi, everybody. I'm super excited that you're all here. I'm going to try to keep it as interactive and engaging and as fun as possible. This topic, out of all the other ones I've taught, can be dry, but the good news is it's extremely simple and you are all going to ace this section. So I'm going to try to keep it as fun as possible. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. Ashley, feel free to interrupt me because I will not be directly looking at the chat. We are not going to be spending the entire 2 hours. This probably roughly takes about an hour, and then we'll have about 20 minutes to do the practice questions. With that in mind, a couple of housekeeping things. We are not sharing the slides, so please, if we get 50 messages saying, could you please share the slides? We're not sharing the slides. And secondly, I've done this for so long with the NBPHE now that the number one question we usually get is questions specific to the exam. So we'll be like, somebody will ask, is this going to be on the test? Or is this going to be on the test? Or what's going to be on, what's the exam? So the review sessions are here to, give you overview of the exam content. Obviously, if you see anything in today's slides that you're like, crap, I don't remember what that is, I highly encourage you to circle it, write it down on your notebook, and go back and review it. That is the best way to learn. I've been doing CPH review sessions and exam writing since 2016, so it's coming up 9 years now. So it's been a long time. I've seen the exam, I've done a lot of stuff with the CPH, and yeah, I'm just really excited to be here. So on that note, let's get going. So 9 domains, and we're looking at program or resource management, which is 9% of the exam. Let's just dive right in. So I'm going to open up the chat here, and I'm going to just put it on the side. I'm going to ask you right now, what is program management? So don't look at anything. I just want you to spitfire. If I asked you right now, what is program management? What would you say? And hello, everybody. All the people saying hello from different parts of the US and internationally, hello. Okay, Christina, you said program management is resource management. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How to run things, okay, handling logistics. Okay, any other ideas? Staffing, supplies, time. Okay, leading a team, yes. Assessing populations, capacities that affect community health. Managing resources, yes, money, people, time schedules, taking old and making new. Okay, Betty, good one. Yep. Anything else? Hiring, training, programming, reports, SWOT analysis. Okay, so, and one person said project management. So this is the part where it gets nitty gritty. So we're going to talk about what program management is. So big picture, okay, everybody? Coordinating various projects, plural, and strategic initiatives throughout an organization. So big picture, program management is talking about organizational wide. Obviously, this program management topic can change depending on the field, but for the CPH exam, it means organizational change across the entire organization. Clear as mud? So what is program management? We're talking about big picture, okay? So I just set that on the record. Then what is project management? And I'm not trying to trick you. So we just talked about program management. Then what's project management? And I do have the chat up, so I'm reading everybody. Feel free to type it in. Okay. Kathia, I hope I'm saying people's names right because I know with names. Kathia, leading a specific project. Yes. Anything else? Ensuring resources. I'm going to say meet the objective, I'm guessing. Project with a start and end date with a specific deliverable in mind. Good, good, good. Anything else? And when I say anything else, I don't mean that you're wrong. I mean, I'm just wanting to see what people's thoughts are on this. Action plan, leading a team, meeting objectives. Okay. Okay, so then so before I actually show you what the answer is, I'm gonna ask another question. So then what's the difference between project and program management? This is the fun part. Now you're gonna start to rethink your emails when you're talking about something. You're gonna be like, program management. No, wait, am I talking about program management? Good. As our program big, Heather, project is one part of the program. Okay. We're gonna talk about timelines. Okay. Yes. Yes, you're all getting it. You see, you already aced this section. I don't have to tell you anything. Good. Yes. So project is a process of leading a project performed by a team to achieve certain goals, including building, intervention, product, deliverable. Project management, the outcome is a specific deliverable. Write that down. The reason why is on the exam, if you get an example of a scenario and they're like, is this talking about project or program management? You better know what level and tier it is. So outcome is a specific deliverable. Good. Okay, you just answered. Then what's the difference between program manager versus a project manager? What would be the difference? And it doesn't matter if my answer, if the answer is so obvious. The more we can repeat it, the better you are that you don't have to review this for the exam. So what would be the difference between program manager and versus a project manager? Jonathan, can I read your answer out loud? Jonathan had the best response. Program management is more tired but paid better. Ashley, that was probably the funniest thing I've seen in a long time. Jonathan, you got to come to all these sessions now. One program manager, not necessarily multiple project managers. That is correct. Yes. There may be more than one program manager, depending on how big your organization is. Yes. But I get your gist. Yes. Good. Everybody's getting it. Okay. The one who gets the promotion. I can't. Okay. I can't get distracted, y'all. Okay. So I love this quote, and I hope this quote helps you. If program managers are architects, project managers are the painters, plumbers, and electrical engineers. And I mean, Pixel 7 minions, aren't we all minions in a sense, right? So, and I don't want to downgrade project managers. We all have a role to play, but program managers are those that are the architects, and project managers are the painters, plumbers, and electrical engineers. Paris Mud? By the way, every time I turn a slide, if the previous slide you're like, oh crap, I don't know what the hell she's talking about, write it down. Go back and review it, okay? Okay, so I'm going to review it again. Don't you just love this? Program managers oversee and coordinate the various projects, products, and other strategic initiatives. They coordinate multiple projects. They provide strategic guidance across the organization, okay? So that's program. Project managers oversee the individual projects within programs. They're the ones coordinating the specific time, budget, resources within the program guidelines. And of course, they report to the program manager. Does that make sense? Remember, project, the outcome is a specific deliverable. Good. Okay, moving on. Again, am I asking you to do this in your sleep? Yes. What is the difference between a program versus project manager? Let's ask you again before we move on one more time. What's the difference between program and a project manager? And the people are like, this girl is so annoying. Like, why is she asking the same damn question? Because on the exam, there's going to be a scenario and you better know who you're reporting to. You better know who's in charge of what. Okay, so again, program, big picture. Yes. Project manager reports to the program manager and it's the specific deliverable. Yes. And it's the itty bitty, remember the electrical engineers, the plumbers. Good. Good, good, good. We're all getting it. Good. Okay, so what we're going to do, how we're going to plan today is I'm going to go through each of the tasks that are under the domain of program and resource management, okay? I'm going to go through each of them. Please, again, if you see anything you don't know, circle it, go back, write it down so that you can review it and know what it is for the exam. So we're going to start nice and easy, y'all. It's going to be such a good time today. What's a budget? What's a budget, y'all? And Ashley, you've heard this all the time. You're in high school. Your mom gives you 500 bucks on the premise that you provide a budget. What's a budget? Funding allotted to deliver the program. Okay. Money management, funds allocated for a specific program. Plan for the money you'll spend to run the program. Outline of our cost. Good. Everyone's getting it. Resources are loaded for the execution of the project. Accountability, funding, allocation. Yes, we're all getting it. So this might seem obvious, but you need to know this. A budget is a spending plan based on income and expenses. It's an estimate of how much money you'll make and spend over a certain period of time, such as a month or year. Okay, so, and it can involve having a comprehensive list of things. So you got 500 bucks from your mom. She says, give me a budget, the stuff you're going to spend on the 500 bucks. You say, I'm not going to have a list because I'm going to spend the whole darn thing on a PS5. That's still a budget, right? So then, everybody, what is a budget justification? What's a budget justification? So you got 500 bucks, your mom asks you for a budget. And you're like, why do I need a budget? I'm going to spend it on a PS5. That's my budget. And then she goes, I need a budget justification. What is that? A reason for the money expended. Yes, narrative description of expenses. Jenny, reason for the money to be spent. Yes. You can't ask the NIH for $50 million and say you're going to go to Fiji. You have to have a budget justification. So, narrative explanation of each of the components of the budget, how each budget item is required to achieve the project aims, right? How you calculated those costs. You can't just say, I need $5 million. You have to show how you actually calculated that. You have to follow your funding agency guidelines. Every funding agency is different, and you're all public health professionals. You probably know this better than I do. You got to be organized, and you have to make sure it's reasonable, right? So that is a budget justification. Does that make sense? Do you understand the difference between a budget and budget justification? Yes, give me thumbs up. Yep. Good. Do you know the difference between a program and project manager? And you're like, is she ever going to let that go? No. Do you know it? Yes. Betty, I love ya. Azar, yes, good. See, that's how I keep you awake. And you're like, I can't stand this lady. In 1 hour, you'll never have to see me again. I promise you that. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so you told your mom about your PS5. You gave her a budget justification, writing a narrative description of why you need the PS5 because it's going to change your life. Now now she's asking for the elements of a budget. So what is an element of a budget? So what are the elements of a budget? It is not the justification, it's different. Folks with MBAs, you're going to love this section. Yes. Salary. Yes, exactly. Yes, 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 yes. Exactly. Items, it's cost, income, expense. Good, good, good. Awesome. Your details on how the money will be spent. Yes, and I'm trying to be as engaging as possible with y'all, and it's I have a weird sense of humor, so I apologize, but trying to make it clear what the differences are. So elements of a grant budget, you've got personnel, you've got resources. And by the way, this is not everything. I'm just giving you the key ones you should know. Contributors, consultant costs. Maybe you want to hire a consultant, right, for your project. Your equipment, your supplies, software, travel, other miscellaneous costs. So if you're looking at this list, everybody, and you're like, I don't know what that is. Oh, I don't know what that is. Go write it down and go back and review it, okay? Because today we don't have enough time. So go back and review the elements of a grant budget, okay? But ideally, this is what typically should be in the elements of a grant budget. Good, everybody's getting it. We're going to move on. So now we're going to talk about managing operations and programs with current and forecasted resources. So we're going to get a little bit nitty gritty here, but we're going to talk about direct costs. So what would be a direct cost? And this might be something from like Public Health 101 in your first year of your NPH. It's been a while, but what are direct costs? Obviously, in the real world, when you come out of this, nobody's going to be like, Bob, what's a direct cost? Nobody's going to ask you that, but it's expected if you're especially writing grants, you should know what these are. Salary. Okay. Can anybody give me a definition of a direct cost rather than an example? Yep, those are great examples, but can anybody give me a definition? Fixed cost to operations. Good. Good, good, good. Yes. Okay, everyone's getting it. So I'm going to go directly to the definition, all right? So direct costs are costs that would not be incurred any longer if the program were to disappear. I know it's a little complicated because the resources generating these costs would no longer be needed. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example right here. You all said it before. Staff. Okay, so if the program were to be discontinued, staff would be laid off, right? So staff would be a direct cost. So again, one more time, costs that would not be incurred any longer in a program were to disappear if the program were to disappear because the resources generating the cost would no longer be needed. And I know we have a lot of English as a second language learners in here, so I'm going to give you lots of good, simple examples to make sure that what I'm saying makes sense, okay? All right, that's direct costs. So what about indirect then? Okay, indirect. So you have staff, direct costs. What will be indirect? Since it's pretty simple because we just defined direct. Overhead, yes, that, yes. Yes, varying costs, indirect, yes. Good, good. Yeah, Christina, you got it. I saw your other responses earlier. Killing it. Yes. Yes, you're all getting it. Okay, so here's the definition. Costs that are incurred regardless of whether the program is discontinued. Okay, and it is usually fixed, and I'm going to go more into that. So example, rent. I mean, the space is there, the rent is there. Whether or not you hold focus groups on Thursdays or Tuesdays, gotta pay for the rent, right? Heat, light, phone, internet. Those are costs that are incurred regardless of whether the program is discontinued. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you're not sure, if you're sitting there, especially my ESLs, I know sometimes you email me. If it's confusing to you, think of it as whether the program goes on or does not go on. Okay? If you're going to school, you have a lunch program that's going on. If there's staff that's working at the lunch program, the staff would be a direct cost because they're linked to that lunch program, right? But the rent for the school, the lights that are in that classroom, yes, all indirect. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and if you're sitting there going like, why are examples so like not specific to public health? It's because this is an international exam, right? We are moving away from US centered, and there's a lot of us that are learning English as a second language. So, over the years I've taught for this, I want to make sure everybody can relate and understand the examples that I give. So, simple but makes sense. Good. Okay, 2 more types. Are you ready? So you got direct, indirect. Now we're going to talk about variable and fixed. Okay, so I know we're getting a little confusing, but it's not. I got you. So variable costs happen only when resources are used. Okay, so when the lunch program is happening and they're giving out lunch, brown paper bag or whatever, program supplies, those are variable costs. Maybe they have 5 kids that come in that day. Maybe they have 200, right? Variable costs. Fixed costs, this is very similar to the indirect and they can get confusing. They happen regardless of the volume of services provided. Okay, so that's rent. The school space. Maybe it's a specific space that they rent to give out these school lunches for a program for inner city kids. You got to rent out the space regardless of how many kids come and go. Does that make sense? And if you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, there's 4 different types of costs and oh my goodness. Yeah, so that, get ready. Y'all ready to do some little bit of a jigsaw here? You get ready. As are you're so sweet. I either get I love your energy or you're annoying AF. So I love it. But I try to keep everybody on their toes. Okay, you ready? So here's a 2x2. We have to go into our epi brain a little bit. You ready? Variable. So expenses can be variable and direct. Variable indirect. By the way, overhead is another word that they interchange. Fixed direct. Fixed indirect. Now your head's going do 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 do, right? So I'm going to give you examples of each, and some of them, I'm going to be honest with you, it depends on the granting agency. They do kind of flip and interchange things, but for the exam, this is what you need to know. So here we go. So let's start with this one. Variable direct. Remember, it's direct costs, but variable, right? So supplies used for each unit of service provided. Okay. So staff, but the number of lunches. Okay. Fixed direct staff costs if paid an annual salary regardless of volume of units service provided. So the lunch program staff, they're on salary, that's fixed direct. Variable indirect, this is the one that gets a little bit, you don't see it very often, but I need to define it. It's, for example, electricity costs that vary on the basis of units of services provided. And I wrote a little note here, everybody, if you saw on the bottom, unusual to have variable indirect costs. It can happen, but it's unusual. Typically, it'll be fixed and indirect. So the ones that we just talked about, rent, insurance, internet, all that. It's usually fixed and indirect. So take a picture of this right now. Take a picture of it, because on the exam, what could happen is you'll get in a scenario where you are a project manager. You are looking to hire this for this specific service. What type of services are you talking about and what kind of expense would it be? You need to know that. So that would be an application question. Does that make sense? So I'm just going to leave it on here for 20 more seconds. Just take a picture of this. But so far, quick recap. We've learned program management, project management. We learned what a budget is. We learned what a budget justification is. We learned the elements of a budget, and then we've learned 4 different types of expenses. Okay, moving on. Now we're talking about proposals. Okay, so we're kind of merging things together now. So going back to grants, everybody, our favorite topic. What's a grant proposal? Different than a budget. Different. Yes. What's a grant proposal? And that's the thing with the CPH. You got to know the fundamental differences between budget and grant, proposal, justification, right? Request for supplemental funding. Okay. I'm going to move this chat so I can see everything. Jonathan, oh, Jonathan, I'm like waiting for a little fun little comeback from you. Aligns with requests for submission to explain how your organization can fulfill the goals of the grant. Okay, yeah, good, good, good. So here's a more fun question for y'all. What's the difference between a grant proposal and a budget justification? Oh, Betty, you just answered my question. A grant proposal is a written request for funding with budget justification. You hit it on the nail. You got it. You got it. So has anybody seen something like this? I use this directly from, I was allowed to use this. This is a biographical sketch. It's a part element of a grant application, but a grant proposal essentially talks about the aims of the project, why you're looking for funding, what it's going to fund. And like Betty just said, it comes with the budget justification. So who's on the project? Personal statement. What institution are you coming from? Am I muted? Nope, I don't think I'm muted. Oh,
No, you're not,
okay,
Serena.
I'm good. Okay. Why you need the money? What elements of the budget are most important to you? Why is it important? So that is a grant proposal. And then of course the entire grant application includes all of that. So if you weren't sure, because a lot of us have different backgrounds, right? Some of us are dietitians, some of us come from MBA, we have different backgrounds. If you're sitting there, it's okay, and you're not sure about what a grant looks like, here is your best friend. Go to the NIH website. If you're Canadian, okay, because I'm Canadian, go on the CIHR website, okay? Go on that website and look at the sample grant applications. And I'm not asking you to sit down and read 165 pages of what the grant is. Just look at it, skim over it, and look at the elements. So the main titles, okay? And just familiarize yourself on what a grant looks like, what it has. And then go to the budget section. Look at what they're asking for, okay? And these are the grants that have been funded, so you know that they've been successful, okay? Good, 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 good. So that's a little tip if you're not sure about this section. Okay, big red flag here, stop sign. If you are not sure what the difference between these terms that you see on the screen are, you need to go back and review them. And this is actually a really good slide because I think, the second last review session of the series. So you've probably seen all of these terms in the last how many weeks? Task, deliverable, milestone, outcome, aim, objective, goal, strategy. You need to know these and you need to know the difference between them. Okay? So please, please, please know the differences because that is what will make the difference between doing well in a section and not doing so well. Okay, so that's my little tip sheet. I'm going to give you 10 more seconds. If you take a photo, please do. Good. Okay, folks who've been working in project management, I'm going to ask you a good question here. What are some ways to secure financial support for your project, intervention, or program? And just shout it out, popcorn it in the chat. In your experience, because you're probably more experienced than me in this area, what are some ways to secure financial support in your area? And you don't have to be in research, just in general. Maybe you're in CBPR. Maybe you're working as a social worker. You have to be detailed and specific. Apply for grants. Be evidence-based, okay? Yes, searching for donors. What else? What else could you do to secure some financial support? Advocate. Alliance with their mission, have a good justification. These are all great. So I'm going to give you the key ones. Obviously, again, in real life, there's more than 3 ways, okay? Here are some ones. And then the ones in red, everybody, you need to know. You need to know, okay? Grants and contracts. Those are 2 key ways to secure financial support. However, there's something called prizes, cooperative agreements. At Johns Hopkins, the way I'm funded is through a cooperative agreement, right? There's direct research support, okay? Investments, and matching grants. Don't worry about the rest, just know the red. The other ones, that's great if you know them, but grants and contracts, you need to know, okay? So we talked about grants. What have we not covered? Contracts. So we're gonna now move on to contracts, but grants and contracts. So let's go into that. Let's do it. Let's do it. So what's a contract? You're like, how many more of these are there? I'm like, oh, I'm just getting started. I'm kidding. We're getting through it. But what is a contract? And it does not have to be like a public health definition. Just give me your ideas of what a contract is. Formal agreement, an agreement between parties. Legal agreement, as are, binding. Okay, good, good, good. So this is really, really key, okay? Because this definition may not be the same for all fields, but for the exam, contracts are agreements that enable people, businesses, and society to come together and collaborate towards their specific need. Y'all, they are official agreements that can be enforced to follow and are enforceable by law or policy. Okay, so in the purposes of the CPH, they are official and they're enforceable. Okay, 3 types, and we're going to go through these: fixed, cost reimbursable, and time and materials. So again, contracts, official agreements. Okay, and some of you said between 2 parties. It doesn't have to be between 2 parties, but typically they're between 2 parties, but they're enforceable and they're official, okay? And how many are there? Types are there? 3, okay? 3. Good, good. Here's the first one, okay? The first one is very easy. Fixed price. And I'm going to give you a real world definition for folks who are not understand this, a lot of English, right? So I'm going to give you a really easy example to know this. So I'm just going to read it out first. A legal agreement between a client and a vendor that will provide goods or services for the project at an agreed on price. So I use this example every time I've taught this presentation. So you hire a roofing company. Your roof on your house, it don't look so good, okay? You hire a roofing company. They say, I will finish everything on the roof brand new for the X amount of money. Let's just say $20,000. That includes everything. It does not matter how much time they spend roofing. The cost is the same. Does that make sense? I like that example. I mean, it doesn't have to be public health, but it's a fixed price contract. No matter how much time or effort goes to the project always pays the same. Okay, so that's fixed price. Ready to move on? Okay. The second one is cost plus or cost reimbursable. This one is a little bit tricky, so I'm gonna make sure you understand it. The organization agrees to pay the vendor for the cost of performing the service or providing the goods, but then the vendor will charge you for the cost of doing work plus some negotiated fee or rate. So I'm going to give you an example. So you pay a mechanic to fix something on your car. And it's a fixed rate, just like the other one. But if it takes a little bit longer, or let's say you have to pay him overtime, there is a negotiated fee. Or let's say he finds out that this is also wrong with your car, you agree that you will pay him this negotiated fee to fix that. So the fixed one would be, regardless how long he spends on your car, it's the same price. This one, the cost reimbursable, is for sure a cost to fix the car plus a negotiated fee pending on what you need him to do. Okay? Does that make sense? So I call this kind of like there's a fixed cost, but there's a little bit of variety. So it's kind of in between. Make sense? The last one I'm going to go to is very easy. Very, very easy. So the last one, it's consultant work. And if you're sitting there going, what's a consultant? Let me tell you. So the client pays a rate for the time spent on the project and pays for all the materials. Time is contracted usually on an hourly rate. So you hire a research assistant, pay them $20 an hour. Okay. I'm making up numbers. $30 an hour. They bill you, they bill you an invoice of how many hours they worked, and they're paid on an hourly rate. So I'm going to stop here. Let's just go back. So what is a contract? Official agreement, enforceable. How many types are there, everybody? 3. Fixed, cost reimbursable, time and materials. You will never ever find a question on the CPH where they're gonna be like, what is the definition of time and materials? They're not gonna do that. What's most likely going to happen is you're going to get an example or a scenario where you'll need to identify what type of contract it is, putting on your project manager or program manager hats. Okay, so these are the 3. What's the difference between a program and project manager? Program, big picture. Project, specific deliverables. Okay, what is a budget? Right? You need to know these terms from what we learned today And it'll be very easy once you kind of review all your things, but you already all know it, you will know it. And there's 4 types of expenses: indirect, direct, fixed, variable. Okay, you ready to move on? Yes, you are. So I kind of did this to myself. What are the 3 different types of contracts? What's the first one? What's it called? And it's funny. I'm like, why does education have to be boring? You go to university and it's just like this monotone professor standing. Yes, fixed. Okay, what's the second one? What's the second one? Do you remember the name? Starts with the C. Very close. Very close. Yes, cost plus or cost reimbursable. Yes. And what's the third one? Third one. Time. Rhea, you got the first part. Time and materials. Good. Good, good, good. Just remember the roofing example if you're ever confused, okay? Yeah. Good. Okay, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. Just take a breather from all the money stuff. And we're gonna talk about sustainability. And you probably talked about this in your program evaluation section, but we're gonna review it again. So I'm gonna give you a scenario. You are a project or program manager, but what do you do if the following happens? You wake up the next day, you go to your team meeting, and they're like, we're gonna lay off like this many people. Changes in staffing. You find out that one of your projects isn't doing very good. Um, you find out that your funding agency no longer wants to fund your project. You find out that there is a pandemic and everything's shutting down. And you find out that your stakeholders are no longer interested. These are all realistic things that can happen in a project or program. Obviously, there's other things that can happen internally, but these are some key things. So, quick discussion point. Have you experienced this? And how have you overcome these challenges? And I'm asking you honestly, your expertise. Hazar and Jonathan, you too. Oh my goodness. You need to be my like it's rom-coms, you need to have my like laughter, like little audience that laughs and makes jokes so that, my day just gets better and better. Cry. Obviously, I would be crying inside. Kathy, I liked what you said. Pivot and reevaluate. I love that. Very positive. Yes. Ashley, I can't remember. I think last time somebody said, just keep swimming.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
somebody said, I think. Remember?
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think it was the program manager at that time that said
Yeah,
that.
she did say that.
And everybody was silent. Um, Leilene, identifying the reason why, brainstorm possible solutions, changes in staff, hire immediately. Yes, look at new or different opportunities. Good. Good. I like the fact that everybody's thinking about it, and more likely you've probably experienced 1 or 2 of these things. I mean, I know for sure number 4, we've all experienced that. So let's say, you as the program or project manager, how do you sustain sustainability of your program or project? Like, what are some ways? So Christina, I like your answer, looking at new or different opportunities, different grants. Yeah, maybe you pivot, maybe you outreach a little bit more, maybe you look at different opportunities and grants and funding. Anything else that we could do? I'm just giving people time to type. Plan for it from the very beginning. I mean, I wish, actually, even I wish all the time. Um, Sometimes, yeah, we would love that, right? Participation from the local community. Yes, ask your community what they need. Evaluate costs and benefits of programs on a regular basis. Yeah, this comes from evaluation. Involve beneficiaries, stakeholders at all stages. Good. So I'm just doing this exercise to help put your thinking caps on and think about sustainability. So one of the ways to ensure sustainability, and this is for the exam, obviously your program manager is not going to come up to you and be like, is one of the ways to ensure sustainability is having a theory. No, but for the exam is to have a strong foundational framework. So hint, hint, we are going to theory. So grab some coffee, everybody, because we are going to theory a little bit. So if you see any of these, I put it on the title, you will know you are in the program and resource management section. Like right away, you should be putting on your management caps on if you see any of these. So one, has anybody seen any of these before? Task lists, timelines, Gantt charts, flow charting, quality improvement, but a little bit different than evaluation. Okay, we're gonna go through each of these. Obviously, like I mentioned, there's different ways, but this is for the exam. Okay, let's do this. Anybody seen this before? This reminds me of the museum. You know when you go to a museum and you see like the milestones coming from like the war all the way to today, or like the milestones of how women came through and helped bring women along through whatever. This always reminds me of like the museum. I love this. I like to use it in my daily life as well. Doctoral students and PhD students, I'm sure you've seen this type of timeline. Where's your milestones in your career, in your academic journey, right? So this is called a task list and timeline. You have a task, you write it within the timeline, it shows you how long it's going to take. And usually it looks like this, but it doesn't have to. Okay. Who's seen this before? Who knows what a consort diagram is? Anybody know what a prisma diagram, consort diagram is? If you don't, all good, but that is an example of a flow chart or process flows. Anybody who's conducted a randomized control trial, you probably have seen some sort of figures like this. Anybody who does intervention studies, observational studies, figuring out your final analytic cohort, you'll use process flows. Project managers, you'll use this to figure out what elements of a project are in what stage, right? So this is a flow chart or process flow. This one's famous. Oh, can you say something for the shapes? I'm not going to say anything for the shapes because this is just an example. The shapes really don't mean anything in this example. However, it can mean something for your program. Okay. So in this case, this is a terrible example, but usually they'll have a legend. So some of the shapes or colors could be more time sensitive. It might be long term, short term. That could be what it is. But for this, it's just a template. I'm just showing you that it can look like this. Okay, I think this one is a very important one and very famous Gantt chart. I use this because if you're a nitpicky, nitty-gritty, detail kind of oriented person, great thing is all your project deliverables are on the left. All your outcomes, everything is on the left. Who's responsible? When it started? Is it in process? Is it ending? When is it ending? You can see everything. By the way, this is not a promotional thing. I'm just showing you this so that if you ever see it, you know what it is. Good. And the last thing, this is the one that we're going to spend some time, is performance evaluation. Who in here has ever gotten a performance eval done? Or like a audit? Some people like to call it audit on their performance. I think everybody has done one. I'm a group fitness instructor many, many years. Even in that space, we get a performance evaluation done every year, right? So in public health, this could look different, right? So we get to be talking about performance in terms of the setting. How's the workplace performing? We could be looking at different ways to measure the performance. And then we're looking at quality improvement. How are we going to improve the quality of whatever you're offering? And then last but not least, you want to report on the progress. Am I frozen? Or is it just me? Ashley,
No, you're not frozen again.
okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm making sure I'm good. Okay, so those are 4 areas of a cycle of performance evaluation. Obviously, there's different types of frameworks for performance evaluation, but this is an example. Good. Who's seen this before? Study, act, plan, do. Yes. If you see this, you know we're looking at quality under the program management, resource management scope. Okay. So you're looking at whether or not, you're looking at the data from your project and you're looking at it as a project manager, remember, okay? You're analyzing, you're seeing what progress have you made? What changes need to be made? Yes, PDSA, yes. You look at your objectives, right? Again, it's a cycle, right? You're continuously cycling. I see this framework a little bit too much in my workplace. People love this, which is a good thing. And then you continue on the cycle. Like I said, this is a review session. So if you're looking at this slide and you're like, what? Write it down and then go back and review it. It is not hard. This I would say, as are, you probably agree with me on this. This is one of the more simpler frameworks in public health, because it's very clear. So keep this on your brain for the exam. Okay, another fun thing. I told you this domain is kind of fun. Who's ever had to give constructive feedback or had to receive? Have you received constructive feedback? Somebody said last time, they're like, what do you mean by constructive? Have you ever had, I think giving is harder than receiving. I think. I don't know how you all feel. I think giving is so hard, right? So remember, we're in the domain of project and program management. So we have to talk about this, right? Because you're a manager. You have to talk about giving constructive feedback. So who's heard of benchmarking? If you haven't, we're going to talk about it right now. So in business, it means measuring your company's quality against like a gold standard. Okay, so we can't reinvent the wheel, right? So let's say you have, I'm going to go back to that school lunch program. You're a program manager for this huge statewide school lunch program, but you don't know whether your school lunch program is doing well. So to figure out whether it's doing well, you're going to have to look at the measure standard. So what is the most successful school lunch program in the US? And you're going to compare with that. Some of them, the measure standards are validated, some are not, right? So it depends on what field you're working in. You're going to look at some other sustainability measures if there is no program standard, right? And then from there, you're going to look at whether your program is long-term or if it's short-term, right? So benchmarking is really important because that's the way you know whether or not your program performance quality is hitting the marks or not. Okay, because you're a manager, right? You have to think about that. Here's an example. So a lot of chronic disease prevention management projects look at this, and they reference this, Healthy People 2020. It's the federal government's prevention agenda for building a healthier nation. And I apologize, this is US centric. Ashley, I should really move away from this slide. So future. I just realized I'm Canadian too, so I should move. Okay. It's a statement of national health objectives in the US designed to identify the most significant preventable threats to health. So it has these national goals and objectives that you should kind of hit. So a lot of projects use these kind of benchmarks to see whether or not they hit these goals or not. Does that make sense? And I'm going to make sure in the future I change this to like a WHO thing or something different, but this is an example. Okay, this slide, you don't need to memorize this. You don't. I said DONT. You do not need to. This is just something that you should just kind of understand that it exists. So there are some different types of evaluations you can do in terms of economic performance of your project. So one is cost benefit. So it's looking at a tangible or soft outcome number into a monetary number. So you're seeing whether it generates revenue. Yeah. Cost effectiveness analysis is looking at life years saved rather than dollars. And then cost utility is, has anybody heard of quality adjusted life years? Big in diabetes research interventions. You look at whether a program, saved how many dollars in quality adjusted life years. So these are just some areas, sorry, not areas, examples of evaluations that can be done to look at cost. Okay, direct quantifiable cost. And the cost doesn't mean dollar. I mean, like I said, QALY, life year saved. Good. This one you need to memorize. So I did the harder one first. This one you need to memorize. You need to memorize this. There is a calculator on the exam. By the way, if you didn't know, you need to know return on investment. Investment gain minus investment cost over investment cost times 100. So return on investment is what we give, the costs, benefits, and what we get in return. Yes, Nora, there is math. Okay, I'm going to say math. There is math because there is an epi and biostats section, obviously, in public health. So you will need to know some math. Yes. It's not very complicated math. And the numbers are not there to make you figure out if there's a decimal place or not. It's going to be very easy roundable numbers. The biggest thing is knowing where to put numbers. Yes, you do get paper. Yep, there should be paper and like an HB1 pencil, or is that what you call it now? HB1 pencil, Ashley? HB pencil
Number
available
two
to you.
pencil in the end.
Number two pencil, my goodness. Jeez, these numbers. Yeah, there should be a number two pencil that's given to you when you get to the exam, but they don't, so you can't bring in anything. They will offer it to you. It should be already there. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, you're taking it at home.
You should
I
follow the directions that are sent out to you. So if you're taking it at home and that's what it says, make sure to follow those directions that are sent out to you.
Good call.
And I will check and follow up with that.
It's funny because every time I come to this slide, actually, somebody asked that exact same question. So we should really look into
Mhm.
that. We'll look into that for you, Nora, and make sure we answer you for that. Yeah, of course.
And don't be
But
scared of the
yeah,
math. It's really it's minor. So
very minor.
if
Very,
you
very, very
know
minor.
like the formula for ROI or something like that, it's just that simple.
Yeah,
It's not big calculations.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You wouldn't even need paper. You just know where to put it. So it's very, very easy. Okay. As he's already on it. Okay. Shall we move on? We're almost done. Almost done. Um, who's heard of a community health assessment or community health improvement plan? By the way, Canadians, this term might sound a little bit different in Canada, so I just want to give you a heads up. Okay. It's funny because I started with the CPH as a Canadian because they wanted a non-American perspective, and I've been with them forever, so it's been great. Okay, so let's start with CHA. What are CHAs? What is a community health assessment? Let's continue with this interactive, amazing group and continue to spitball fire what you think this is. And Canadians, you're like, is that what I think it is? It is. It is. Way of identifying what is in the community. Yes. What else? What else could you identify other than what's in the community? Health needs of a community. Yes. Overall assessment, needs assessment. Yeah. Needs assessment. Yes. So in Canada, we call it a community needs assessment. That's what I was trying to hint at. Yeah. Good. So I'm going to give you an official definition. And because I used a US centric example before, I'll use a Canadian one just to bounce it out. How's that, everybody? Community health or needs assessment. Okay. So state, tribal, local, or territorial health assessment that identifies key health needs through a systematic, comprehensive data collection analysis. So it's not just a rando knocking on someone's door and being like, what are your thoughts? This is a legitimate process that has specific steps and it's evidence-based. So on the right-hand side of this slide, this is a toolkit from Ontario. And I know you're like, why are we looking at Ontario? Because it's actually very, very nice. I like the way that it's color coded. And it's essentially the same thing as the CDC. The CDC one looks great, but it's not color coded, and I like colors, so I just picked this one. But essentially, know that there's specific steps, and the whole point of it is figuring out the key health needs of that community through a comprehensive data collection and analysis. Okay, good. Oh, Pixel. I don't know your name, Pixel7, but you're saying really good things. Assets, deficits, issues, and stats. Yes, I love that. That's a great acronym. I like that. If you're sitting there going, I don't know what the heck she's talked about because I'm not in health promotion. I'm EPI, and that's not what I look at. Go into NIH grants funding community health programs. You can also look at tobacco prevention programs, and you can actually see how they went into the community and figure out what the community needed. CDC has a whole slew of community health programs you can look at as examples, just because I know we're all from different fields. Okay, so that's some ways that I could help you in this area. Okay, we just defined a community health assessment or community needs assessment. Then what's CHIP? Not the insurance. I'm not talking about US. What's Community Health Improvement Program? There's so many acronyms and abbreviations in public health. It's kind of ridiculous. But I'm not talking about the insurance program. Americans, you know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not talking about that. As a Canadian, I got so confused. So what's a community health improvement program? Specific plan to meet the needs of a community. Okay, yeah. What else? Anything else? I think Jenny kind of said it perfectly. Plans for progress and ideas. Yes, Casey, good. Strategies and objectives. Good, Christina. Okay, so the reason why I put these two together, the CHA and the CHIP, is because people get confused. The plan addressing the gaps identified. Yes, okay, good. So I'm going to tell you the difference. This is really key. Are you ready to write it? So CHIP is long-term systematic effort to address public health problems. This is really important. Long-term. And it's based on the results of the CHA. I'm going to say it again. It's long-term. Again, it's also a systematic effort to address the needs of the community, but it's based on the results of the CHA. Jenny just said that. I know. The plan is typically updated 3 to 5 years. Again, this is just ballparking for the exam. It can be different per project, and it's pending on the results of how often the CHA is conducted. Sha, good job. Targeted community health improvement. Yes. So that's CHIP. Okay. I'm just going to go back. Long-term, systematic effort, just like the CHA. They're both systematic, but it's based on the results of the CHA. Okay. One way to conduct CHIP, okay, is through community asset mapping. And this happens through CHAs all the time. Okay. Some assets you can look at when you do your CHA is looking at whether or not the community has human resources, physical resources, informational resources, maybe not all the time, but maybe political. And you don't want to reinvent the wheel. What's already in place. Does that make sense, everybody? So I just identified five key ones, but it doesn't have to be all the time. I'm just giving you some examples of what to look for in a systematic way, right? In a CHA that will determine what you need in your CHIP. So you need a CHA to determine what goes in your chocolate chips. That's what I said. It's such an easy way to remember it. Okay. Good. From there, let's see if you're remembering. Oh, Julian, there's also another acronym CHIP. Widely used as. Yes. So Julian, that's what I was trying to talk about at the beginning. When I was asking, I said not CHIP as in the insurance program. I'm talking about CHIP as in health needs. Yes. Yeah, Julian will never ever put an acronym out in an exam and assume that you know it. It'll always be spelled out. Always. Always, always, always. Just for the purposes of the review, I've been using acronyms, but for the exam, you won't ever have to guess like that. Okay, so why do you have to do both CHA and CHIP then? Why can't you just do one and be like, I did one. It's systematic. Why do you need both? And we're almost done. I'm looking at the time, we're almost done. One helps to decide what is needed, and the other helps plan how the needs will get met. Jenny, I love it. Sustainability, yes, because we're public health. Assessment and action plan. Okay, I don't know who Pixel 7 is, but I'm loving this name. Pixel 7, you're killing it. Yes. Before and after. Casey, I love it. It's almost like checking in, right? The CHAs are checking in, and then the CHIP is figuring out what we need to improve. Again, long term, right? I almost feel like CHAs are, like you're cooking up something, the recipe. It's like, you're cooking it up. And then you get the chips, the chocolate chips at the end. You get the final product, and you have to figure out whether or not those chocolate chips are good or you need to improve them. Yes, Chad, good. Good, good, good. Everybody's got it. Good. Okay, so I don't want to, just say, yeah, it's good, you should do both. I do want to be more evidence-based and be, professional here. So CDC says you have to do both because it improves organizational and community coordination, increases knowledge about public health and the activities in the community. It strengthens partnerships. Yes. Identifies strengths and weaknesses, looks at performance, and lastly, gives you ideas about benchmarks, right? Can the two be done at once? No, because you need results of the CHA to inform CHIP. You got it. Y'all, random. What's a contract? This is how I'm going to test you. What's a contract, everybody? Because we're nearing the end here. Legally binding official agreement. Good. How many types of contracts are there? Yay! Killing it. Good. This is how you learn. Good, 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 good. Okay, we're almost done, everybody. We're almost done. We're going to talk about communication because we're managers. We got to talk about communication. So one thing that I'm sure you've all seen this, and I'm not going to roam too long on it because you'll all have to probably take this course anyway, is workplace microaggression training. Something that you'll see more and more in the workplace is talking about training on inclusion, but not just inclusion, but workplace microaggression. So just to give a quick discussion, what would be a negative impact of microaggressions in the workplace? And if you're not sure what a microaggression is, today's not about that. So I want you to go back and look at it. But just for those of you who are familiar, what are some negative impacts of microaggressions? Employee morale. Bad employer. Yep. Yep. I just had one yesterday. I started my new job here and not a boss, but just somebody that was working in the building was like, "Are you Serena Dubois?" "Oh, you're Asian." That's what this person said. Some people would say that's microaggression, but I mean, I obviously be like, "Yeah, that's fine." But, some people take it very seriously. So, hostile work environment. Yes. So Shailene, the first one isn't really are you talking about the example? So this is from the microaggression website. So it can be a form of microaggression, and I'm just doing a little bit of educating here. So for example, I have friends who are adopted from China, and they're not from China, they're adopted, and they have Ukrainian parents. And people say, "Where are you from?" And she's like, "I was actually grew and raised in Ukraine." And they're like, "No, but where are you really from?" And so that can be a form of microaggression. And yeah, so I just wanted to put this out there, not to talk about it, but I just want to get you to all think about this type of training. And as a manager, you'll have to consider this and think about this when you're training your employees. On the same note, I'm on the DIJ committee for the NBPHE right now. Yay, Ashley, we're meeting very, very soon. And so another thing that we're looking at is how can you ensure DIJ principles and training are incorporated within your workplace? So this may be your workplace looks all different, right? Everybody works in different places, but making sure that everybody's respected, and making sure that you're covering your bases when it comes to microaggressions and DEIJ. Good, everybody's got it. Okay, so that was my last thing. I said good luck, but you don't need it. I'm from Alberta, Canada, so if any of you like cold, please come visit me. I'm no longer there now, but if you like cold, please come visit me. I just want to say thank you. We are going to move on to the practice questions, but if you do need to leave, I get it. But I just want to say thank you for your attention. I know I'm a lot, but please know you'll never have to see me again, and you're gonna kill it.
Serena, can I ask you to talk about one thing? You've talked a lot about how you're from Canada, and
Yeah.
what was it like taking the CPH not as a US citizen? So, what was your experience of taking the CPH from a outside the US perspective?
So when I took it, this was before the exam was US centric. So before, and then I got into the exam writing community, and we made it Sorry, this was when it was US centric. Sorry, I'm getting my mind all confused. So when I wrote the exam, I was one of the very few, I think I was the second cohort from my university to ever write the test. And our dean at the time, she was American, so she wanted us to write the test. And because I wanted to move to the US, I specifically wrote the test so I could go to the US. At the time, who was it talking about the acronyms? Jonathan, I'm just thinking about you. We had a lot of acronyms on there that I had no idea. There was a lot of questions about Obamacare that I'm like, and Medicare and different types of insurance sections and different laws and policies that were only US centric that I had no idea. We got a manual specific for US healthcare that I had to memorize. However, ever since I joined the NBPHE committee, which was that summer after I wrote it, we changed the exam so that it is no longer US centric. So I wanted to just give you peace of mind that non-Americans, so international folks, you do not have to worry a thing. This is fundamental, important public health concepts that span any race, religion, background, culture, country. Math is math. Epi is epi. Program management is program management. So, although my experience was tough, it was actually a blessing in disguise because I got to meet Ashley and Allison and yeah. Uh, Justice. When did it change? US based it that year. So I wrote it
It's
in
been so long
10
that
years.
yeah, it's been a long time. So just we had a couple people who are international before, and I thought that you could bring that perspective for everyone.
Yeah,
So
it's such an inclusive exam, and we really, the NBPHE spends so much efforts making it inclusive. Okay. And I mean that. I really, really mean that. It's very welcoming to public health professionals outside the US. And it helped me because I did my PhD at Northwestern and now I'm at Johns Hopkins and yeah, it's been amazing. So I'm very, very lucky. Okay.
all right, you ready to get into practice questions?
You ready? I think we have about 11 questions. 11, that's it. Not 50. 11. I think it's 11. I think it's 11. I
It's
think I
10.
do.
It's 10,
Is
but
it
yeah.
10? 10 or 11. I keep it short and sweet because I've grilled you enough. Like, how many times have I asked you about a contract? Come on. You ready?
Yep.
Let's do it. Okay. So please use this as a true learning opportunity, okay? A budget statement for a public health program provides a detailed itemization of expenses and A, fees, B, taxes, C, grants, D, revenue. I'm going to mute myself so you can read it. Okay, so let's talk about it. So 81% of you said D, revenue. And because I've been an exam writer for many, many years, we usually put one that's a very hard distractor. And this is what I was saying. You need to know the difference between these itty bitty words. So the biggest distractor is fees, usually people. But remember the ROI? Yes, expenses and revenue. The answer is D, revenue. Okay, so if you're not sure, go back, review your definitions, but it's always expenses and revenue. I don't know what more I could say about that. Let's move on. If the technologists are not, oh, here we go, are not paid a salary, but instead are paid according to the number of mammograms they complete, what type of cost would this be? I'm not even going to read the items, just you all read it. Okay, 70% of you got it right. Good, good, good. So I'm just going to review this. So the answer is A, variable direct. Do you remember? Let's go with direct first. Remember, staff are direct costs. If the program were to discontinue, staff would be gone, right? So staff already, technologists are staff. So right away, you should know that it's a direct cost. Now, the variable part, is it variable or fixed? It says in the STEM, instead are paid according to the number of mammograms they complete. It's variable. So that's why it would be A. I know it's a little funky. So just go back to that 2x2 diagram. I know Ashley and I every time, right? If this is such a key question, every time this gets people. Okay, ready? In the planning process, the group being served is referred to as. Okay, everybody is almost there. Yes, and so the distractor is pilot. So the actual answer is D, priority. Okay, so this is a word, key term that comes from the CHA. Yes, um, it's the priority population. Okay. Okay, sorry, I apologize for this weird thing, but these are really good questions that we've been using, so I apologize. Generally, the largest single component in most public health budgets, and therefore the one with which managers must be most familiar with is computer software, hardware, pharmaceuticals, personnel, or shortfall. Yeah, I apologize, some of the numbers are kind of back and forth because I switched the order. So um, forget the question number, just do the question. Okay, a couple more seconds, and I forgot actually to say the caveat point about these questions, so I forgot to say it. So I will say it after I reveal the answer to this one, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Good. Majority of you got it, which was the answer is personnel. Okay, so before we move on to the questions, I wanted to say one thing is some of the wording on these questions are not perfect, okay? And the reason for that is because we want the questions to be relevant, as in they were most likely questions that were on exams before, but we have pulled them. Not because they're bad content, but because they were worded poorly or it wasn't relevant enough. Regardless of how they're worded, the content of it is still relevant to this section. So if there's numbers that are weird and things like that, please disregard. Just focus on what the question is asking. I hope that makes sense. And I've been switching these questions on and off, and Allison and Ashley, they have to deal with it. So yeah, here we go. In the funding applications that state public health departments typically submit every year, program and organizational budget requests, A, are not included, only research project funding is described, are justified by reasonable numbers on accounting spreadsheets, need explanation in a budget narrative, or tend to be always funded. Okay, finish up whatever choice you made. Okay, so the distractor is B. The answer is C. You need explanation in a budget narrative. And the reason for that is B says are justified by reasonable numbers. Well, what is reasonable? And it's not always on accounting spreadsheets, right? So, yeah. You're okay, Nora. You're good. We'll give you a little bit more longer, everybody, because I know there are ESLs here, so we're gonna make sure. By the way, now that we're moving on to these types of questions, I just want to be clear, the questions on the exam will never be this long. Okay, we have figured out very good item writing so that it should never be a reading comprehension test. This is not to test your knowledge of how good of a reader you are. So I know these questions, the stems are long, but please note, it'll never be like this, okay? In your role as a program manager, for cardiovascular disease prevention. You have recently been assigned to lead a project on motivating physical activity. The project is halfway into execution. The project has many stakeholders, and you're trying to determine how to engage them effectively. Which of the following will best help you in this effort? Project management plan, project charter, work performance reports, or procurement documents? Yeah, Sadaf, we'll make sure, we'll give you guys time. So I'm going to shut up. Maybe like, oh, there you go.
I stopped seeing results coming in, so
Good, good. I think I'm just gonna leave you to, yeah. So the answer is A, project management plan, because your project management plan should be including stakeholder engagement. So, and it would not be work performance because we're not looking at whether or not your staff performance or your project performance. We're looking at how to engage stakeholders. Okay. Um, oh, yes. Okay, good question. So the project charter, that good question. So the project charter is another really good distractor that talks about the mission, like the aims of your project, right? What the mission is, what is the intention of why your project exists. So that's different than stakeholder engagement. So in this case, I really want you all to really put your manager hats on. If you were the manager and you needed to talk about engage your stakeholders, where would you go? If you went to work the next day, what would you do? So you really got to know when you read a question, identify which domain you're in, and then that will help you figure out the answer. Good. Okay. 3 more questions. Imagine that you work in a public health organization where sharing of project information is of utmost importance. Project knowledge is shared on multiple systems, services, and internet applications. The array of locations is becoming overwhelming for some of the project team members. What is the best option for the project manager to manage the project knowledge in this situation? A, close down some of the systems that the project team notes as burdensome. B, consolidate or streamline sharing processes where possible. C, compromise with the team to allow each to post in the tool they find most productive. Or D, coordinate a weekly meeting to post all of the team's knowledge at once? This one you got to think a little bit. Actually, I'll just let you pop up the screen whenever. Oh, there you go. Yep, most people got it right. The answer is B, consolidate. 14%. I don't even think I need to go through that. But yes, you as a project manager, you want to know which knowledge of the coming out of your project is important or similar or different. And the best way to do that is to consolidate and streamline sharing processes. Okay. Okay, we're almost done. You ready? You have just taken over a program to overhaul the Public Health Agency's vaccination campaign. During your first week, you determined that the staff spend at least 80% of their time responding to unexpected requests for information from various stakeholders. Because of these interruptions, your staff cannot focus on their assigned project activities, which is resulting in missed opportunities. What should you do first? A, immediately tell the staff to stop responding to unexpected requests since it is not their responsibility. B, push the staff to respond to all the requests faster so that they can perform their assigned project activities. C, ask the staff to forward all stakeholder inquiries to you so that they can focus on their originally planned tasks. Or D, review the communications management plan to understand how stakeholder requests should be processed. Yes, everybody got it. D. Okay, good. Good job, everybody. We're almost there. Almost there. Kathy, you're so sweet. Try to make it engaging. Okay, you ready? We're almost done. Imagine that you are, I think there might be one more after this, Ashley, I think, right? Imagine that you are managing a project to reduce infant mortality in your district, and you are conducting the initial process of identifying stakeholders for a new infrastructure development project. You have just compiled a list of potential stakeholders' names. What should you do next? A, invite the identified stakeholders to the project kickoff meeting. B, conduct stakeholder analysis. C, complete the project stakeholder management process. Or D, develop the stakeholder engagement plan. This one, at the last two questions, I saved for last because they are a bit tricky. So I really want you to spend the next 2 minutes reading through the steps. Okay, so as we saw, Ashley, this one is a tricky one. So the answer, I'll show you the answer. The answer is conduct stakeholder analysis. And let me tell you why. Okay. So in the second line, it says you are conducting the initial process of identifying stakeholders. So you don't even know if that they're going to be your stakeholders or not. Does that make sense? So the distractor is D, develop the stakeholder engagement plan because this assumes that you've already had your stakeholders. B is correct because you still have to conduct your analyses. Yeah, see that? That's what I'm saying. You have to put on your management hats. Like literally, like you imagine that you're managing a project. Like literally you're going into that you just identified. Just identified. You like maybe it's the gas station, maybe it's the teachers, maybe it's the kids. You just developed a list. Yep. What goes in the analysis process? The analysis process is what identifies your final stakeholders for your project. Yeah. Yes, you got it. Everybody's gotten it. Okay. So just the point of this isn't to make you feel like, oh, you got it wrong. The point is to be careful. Read it literally when with the CPH exam. I always say this to people who are writing the exam. Read slowly and once. Okay. Last one. Last one. You ready? And then you never have to see me again. Ready? You are working with your suicide prevention team on estimating how much time each activity will take. One of the documents you're using contains information on categories of tasks, materials, and equipment required to complete your project. You're also interested in reviewing the skill levels of your tasks, required certifications, and levels of your supplies. Which of the following documents would you primarily refer to for this purpose? Resource distribution, work distribution, risk, or skills? Interesting. Okay, so we kind of got a 56% said resource. We got 30% saying skills. We got then work, then risk. Okay, so the answer is resources. Okay, so all of these tasks, materials, and equipment has to do with resources that you need for your project. Yeah, I don't know what more to say that about that than that includes all the resources you need for your project. And that's under community asset mapping. Do you guys remember that? Under your CHA and your CHIP, that's where this is. At this point, those are my 10 questions that I had. I think those give a really good overview of what we covered. Are there any questions for me that anybody has before Ashley, I bring it over to Ashley? Oh, thank you, Tracy. You've all been so nice. Like, I know I'm a lot. Oh, Casey, you're so sweet. I try. I know my examples can sound a little bit like, what are we in kindergarten? But you know what? They make sense, and I don't do those to make you feel like you're elementary school. I do it so that everybody can relate and understand. Um, and I want to make it engaging. You know, I try everybody, you know, people at Johns Hopkins, they liked my presentation. So I did really well in the interview. So I'm glad they kept me here. I'm pretty sure they're going to be having me teach something in the next year. So The med students are going to think I'm nuts. That's all I'm going to say. Thanks, everybody. If you have any questions, please ask Ashley or Allison. But any questions about the content, please ask. Before you go, quickly, I'm just going to do a quick soundbite. Program management versus project management. Okay, you all know? Budget, elements of a budget justification. Contract, 3 types of contracts: fixed, cost reimbursable, time and materials. There's 4 types of expenses: indirect, direct, variable, fixed. What is a grant, right? So this is where I really want you to go back and think about those terms and review them. Okay. Folks who are confused about stakeholder analysis, you need to go back to partnerships and collaboration section, okay? If you're not sure about evaluation and how that differed with the quality performance that we talked about, go back to your program evaluation and read through those, okay? Oh, thank you, everybody. I'm just looking through your comments. You're so sweet. I try. I tried. I mean, I can't make everyone happy, but as long as 90% of you are happy with it, I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Serena. I really appreciate it. Everyone, we do have one more session because we do have that policy and advocacy session that we're making up. So that is next Tuesday. But otherwise than that, we just have one more session to go in this segment of the review session. So once again, thank you so much to Serena, and I look forward to seeing everyone next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
You do all the other. I wish. Okay, bye, everybody.